Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, we're going to be taking a look back at all the mechanics from this year. Some that are definitely very memorable, some it's like, oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it? And I'm going to be ranking them, and yeah, let's jump into it. So, tier maker, we have the rankings of more please. Yes, bring this mechanic back as soon as possible. It is amazing. Solid mechanic. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's great. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it again. Just okay. It's like, yeah, I could probably take it or leave it. Yeah, I mean, if it came back, I wouldn't be upset. And then never again. Please do not bring this mechanic back. What are you doing? Let's jump into it. And this is just in set order, according to Moxfield. I think they did it like alphabetically by set. So here we go. Assassin's Creed, we got free running. And I'm just showing off one card from each of these essentially to show off the mechanic. Free running, as explained on overpowering attack. It's a sorcerer for 5 mana in total, lets you get extra combat essentially, but the part that is free running for 2 and a red. You may cast a spell for its free running cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or commander. Now, this might just be my opinion, but I really don't enjoy specifically when you have mechanics especially that are built around like, hey, you're commander. It just feels like Wizards goes a bit too far into over-supporting commander in a way where it's like, yeah, you know, you're commander. Or assassins, I guess. Like, there's no, like, logic in that it's like an assassin or your commander. Like, what if your commander is, like, a chef? What does that have to do with, like, free running? I don't know. I think that this one's a bit kind of like they're trying to push it too far to be like, yeah, let's make it work. And they're like, first of all, they're like just assassins. They're like, wait. No, not that many people play just assassins. So, yeah, let's also make it commanders too to make it kind of work. So they're kind of just like trying to like fit a square peg into a round hole kind of. And then, yeah, like with this, it's kind of similar to ninjutsu, but like that one makes more sense. It's like, okay, like a ninja like comes out of nowhere and replaces something else. This one's like, okay, what's your benefit? Well, I hit you with my chef commander, so I get to cast this for cheaper because logic. So this one just like, it never kind of fit right with me. So this one is a never again. I don't think it's like the worst mechanic of all time, but it's just like, I don't like kind of when they try to shoehorn in like, commander, it works, great, cool. Not for me. Okay, moving on. Bloomborough, we've got Heartfire Hero displaying the Valiant mechanic. A 1/1 mouse soldier for a single red mana. This one says when it dies, deals damage equals power to each opponent. Valiant, though, is what we're going to focus on. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, put a counter on it. Now, here's the thing, and yes, I do understand. This is kind of like heroic adjacent. I don't like, this is maybe just me, I know there's others out there, I think, actually, that don't like the, like, only, like, one time each turn kind of thing. Like, I don't like limitations. I understand, like, why certain limitations need to happen. This is like heroic expanded because it's like targeting with spells, but also abilities. So it gives you like a better, broader range of what you can target it with, but it limits it to once each turn. So I don't really like limitations, especially when you have a mechanic built around limitations. This one, I mean, we're off to kind of a bad start because I think that again, like, I mean, this one may be more so like a could take it or leave it kind. It's not like it doesn't like leave like a bad taste in my mouth necessarily compared to some to like the Assassin's Creed one, the free running one. So maybe I'll throw this into just okay. It's just okay. Like, I wouldn't be upset if I saw it again, but again, like, it's not something I'm like, yeah, bring it back. Okay, next up. Into the Flood Maw. This one is displaying the gift mechanic. Instant for a single blue mana. Gift a tap fish in this case, but it could be gift a card, gift something else essentially as well. You may promise an opponent a gift as you choose this spell. If you do, they create a tap 1/1 blue fish creature token before its other effects. Return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead return target non-land permanent opponent controls to its owner's hand. So this one is, yeah, I mean, it's a very effective card. It basically kind of gives you an additional benefit. It's kind of like kicker-ish. And again, like I understand that a lot of like a lot of mechanics are kind of like variations of other mechanics. Yes, I understand that. And yes, this is like kicker, but like for your opponent, kind of. I really like this actually. I like kind of the give and take approach of it. It is definitely one that I think is pretty cool. And there's a lot of different there's a lot of different kind of ways you could go about this. Like you could go, try to like describe this like in a way that makes sense. Like, and I don't know if they would go in that direction because like the heart of this, right, is that you're giving an actual gift, right? You are giving like, hey, I'm helping you out. Have a fish. Your opponent's like, thanks for the 1/1 tapped fish, I guess. Thank you. But yeah, you're giving them something. So there can be some like give and take, like politicking with that too, because you can give it to someone else other than the person that you're like hurting with this spell essentially. But also eventually they could do like a bad gifts version of this where it's like you give someone, I don't even know, something that gives their creatures -1/-1 or something like that. So you could, I think it's got a lot of potential for where you could go with it, and I think it's a pretty cool effect. So I do think that this is a mechanic that, like, I would like to see back again. I'd like to see the different variations that you can do with it, and again, like, there's a lot of potential for it because, again, of what you can do with, like, the things that you are gifting. I think so far we've got, like, food, the fish, and yeah, cards, that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, you've got a lot of potential for that one. I think it's a pretty cool kind of, like, new version of Kicker-ish. Moving on. Thorn Vault Forager, a 2/2 Squirrel Ranger for 2 mana in green. This we can tap for a green. You can pay 3 and a green and tap, search life for a squirrel card, available in your hand, then shuffle. Cool. The part that we care about though here is Forage, which is add 2 mana in any combination of colors. And of course, I did not switch the version of this one really quick. There we go. Let's go back to the other version, and this one does show off the actual Forge. Make sure I didn't misspeak right here. To forge, exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sacrifice a food. So that's the reminder text on it right there. It is like an additional cost, kind of, where it is giving you that, you know, you could do it this way, or hey, if you've got some extra cards out of your graveyard, you're like forging through there, or you sacrifice a food. Cool. I do like that it's not just kind of limited to just food, because they'd be like, okay, do you have a food deck? Yay. If not, oh, you can't do it. Darn. I like that it gives you that graveyard option. It is pretty flavorful, I think. Like, the foraging makes sense. Like, you're going through, like, your old stuff, essentially, right? Or you're getting through food as well. So I do like that. It is something that is, like, it's not to the level of gift to me where I'm like, yeah, bring it right back. Bring it right back. This is one that I think is very solid, though. It is a solid mechanic, in my opinion. Again, these are just my opinions. You might disagree. That's completely fine. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below on which mechanics you like from this year. So yeah, let me know. Moving on to another Bloomborough card. This one from the Commander, though. Commander sets. A Gate Instigator. A 1/3 Lizard Rogue that I did not realize was $15 right now. My goodness, for 2 mana in red. This says whenever a creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. That being said, it also has Offspring for 1 and a red. When you may pay additional 1 and a red, you cast a spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. Again, kind of like another version of Kicker. And yes, I understand that it's like, well, it's just copying Kicker. Yeah, but it's doing it in a unique way, in my opinion. It's like, all right, you know what? Hey, cool. We can make an extra copy of this card. And you just get a 1/1 of it. So, like, the point isn't like, oh, it's an exact copy that's huge, right? But it's like, oh, it's a 1/1 token version of it, which tokens have downsides and tokens have upsides. The downside of a token is if it gets bounced, it's just gone forever or whatnot. In upside of a token, those you can, like, populate it and get extra copies of it. So it gives you different avenues to play with, which I think is really cool. And again, it expands the value of the card, being like, okay, yeah, just playing this at a base level, it's a solid card. It's basically like an Impact Tremors. But essentially also, like, if I have extra mana lying around, sure, I get a additional copy of it, essentially. And now it's basically like Perforos, kind of, essentially, so which is pretty cool. And probably why it's around $15. It's not exactly Perforos, obviously, but it's a very good card. So I do think overall that, like, I like the Offspring mechanic. I like that flexibility of it. And I do like, again, like, the different ways that it can play, because again, depending on what creature it's on and what kind of abilities those things have or what kind of mechanics those things have, you really can turn a card that's just like, okay, yeah, that's a solid card, into like, whoa, that's very good. So I do think that this one is yet another very good mechanic that I would like to see back. I would definitely like to see more, please, of this one. Give me some more Offspring, please, especially since I love Populate. Anyways, moving on. Build an entire deck around Populate. Here we go. Trail Tracker Scout, a 1/3 Raccoon Scout for 2 mana in green. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you expend 8, return to 1 target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. You expend 8 as you spend your 8th whole mana to cast spells during your turn. Now, okay, this one, it's an interesting thought, in my opinion, right? It is an interesting thought. It is one where I think in, like, okay, on MTG Arena, it probably works better, right? It probably works better in MTG Arena where it's like, it's keeping track for you, right? All right. Oh, you spent that much mana? Cool. It kept track for you. This is like, knowing when this triggers is going to be like, oh, wait, okay, sometimes turns take a while in Commander, right? You're thinking through things. You go through combat. You're doing all these different things. And then at the end of the turn, you're like, wait, okay, yeah, okay, in my first main phase, like, what did I spend? I think I cast that. I think I activated that ability. That's 3 mana in total. Okay, like, second main phase, like, I've spent... Did I get to 8? Did I get to 8? This is one of those where it's like, it's a cool concept, right? But, like, I think, again... It is like, hey, really, really difficult to keep track of overall. And I'm like, I'd rather just not, I think. So this is a never again mechanic for me where it's just like, it's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's like not fully fleshed out isn't the thing. But it's one where it's like, again, for like a digital client that works a lot better than for, you in person, trying to play a game with your LGS and be like, yeah, okay, wait. Hey, first main, how much did I spend? 3, 4? You think it's 4? I think it's 4. Okay, all right, I guess I got 2 more mana to spend now, and do I don't know. Okay, all right. Or yeah, just missing triggers. That's definitely a way to miss triggers. Okay, next up. A way to not miss triggers really as much, though, I think, would be with stuff like Entity Tracker, and Eerie is the mechanic for this one. A 2/3 flashing human scout for 3 mana in blue. Eerie, whenever enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, draw a card. Here's the thing, okay, I mean, I do like, again, like adjacent mechanics. I like a new play on mechanics. This is just kind of like copy paste Constellation, like, but also in just including rooms, just to include rooms in it as well. And I will get to room here in a second, right? Because actually, I'm going to spoil a little bit. I do like rooms. I mean, it's again, it's not as like undoable it's not as reprintable or redoable, in my opinion, as like the other ones. Like this one does, because again, like enchantments are cool. I do like enchantments, and yes, it is nice to like give a little addition to rooms. It just seems kind of awkward, where it's just like Constellation, slight adjustment, but Constellation, versus like some of the other like adjustment ones, like seem like more of like an actual adjustment, whereas this one's like not like room specific. It's not like I don't know. So like this one, I think I'm gonna go just okay. Like I'm not completely against it. And of course, I'd like to see rooms again at some point, so I guess I'm spoiling that one. But yeah, that is one where it's just like, oh, okay, like, it's just Constellation. Okay, next up, Hauntwood Shrieker, a 3/3 beast mutant for 3 mana in green. It has an ability to pay 1 green, reveal target face down permanent. If it's a creature card, you return face up, which works with Manifest Dread, which is what this new mechanic is. When this attacks, Manifest Dread, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one on the battlefield face down as a 2/2, the other in your graveyard, turn it face up anytime for its mana cost with a creature card. I mean, Manifest Dread is basically just Manifest, but with Dread. Yeah, I mean, which is kind of also just like, oh gosh, what do you call it? Like Morph. These are all just like different versions of Morph here. Manifest Dread is interesting in that I do like that it gives you the like it gives you not only like the face down 2/2, but it also gives you the like, it gives you the card selection, right? And like graveyard play with it too. So I do think it's an interesting take on Manifest and Morph in a way. It is, again, like, it's not a completely, like, new, like, brand new, like, wow, like, oh my gosh, like, wow, this came from out of nowhere, and again, it's tough to do that these days, with how many mechanics we have each year, but it is one that, again, gives you some selection, which I do like that. It lets you kind of work with a face-down creature, say 2/2, which can be a nice play again for, hey, all right, turn it up as, for its mana cost as a creature. Or again, if you got like a blink effect or just like this effect itself on this card lets you flip it up, which is nice. But yeah, like it lets you do some like nice, interesting play with that. This one's kind of on the border for me. And actually, when it comes to like some of these lists, sometimes I like to just do like 4 tiers. So it's like I have to like be like, okay, good or bad. Basically, it's one of the 2 sides. It is one where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? I think, it's just like, it's right in between these two. It's right in between these two. I think it's going to be just okay for me, though. You know what? Yeah, it's going to be just okay. We're going to leave it at just okay, and maybe I'll change my mind later if I can remember that. Okay, let's move on. Going to Rescue Beastie, a 4/3 Beast Survivor for 4 mana in green. And this is going to be demonstrating the survival mechanic. And I guess I said demonstrator there, which is a different mechanic, but not from this year. Anyways, at the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand on the battlefield. Basically, hey, did this survive combat is kind of like the whole like thought behind it. Cool. You get a benefit at the beginning of the next main phase. So this is an interesting mechanic. It is something that is different. It's something that has grown on me over time. It is one where, like, if it's a commander like this, like, you just build around it, and you're like, okay, cool, I've got, like, Springleaf Drum and a bunch of other things in the deck that just, like, tap my commander, so I don't have to send it into danger. Or you've got ways, of course, to get your commander through in combat. But yeah, it's basically, did you survive combat? Cool, you get a benefit. And with something like this, it's a pretty massive benefit for you. It is one, I do like that they are playing with a new space with that. It is one where, it again has grown on me. It is one where I think that there weren't enough, like, really good cards with the mechanic to really make it work all that well. And yes, I understand it's like you're supposed to get, like, give a little bit of a challenge to it, right? Where it's like, okay, like, you've got to survive combat. I'm not just going to give you, like, giant evasion to make you get through, to make sure you survive, or, like, a tap ability. So, like, again, there is a kind of, like, interesting, like, push and pull with it. I think they could have done a little more with it, though. But yeah, I do think that, like, it has some potential. I think it is an interesting, different direction. I'm going to go with a solid mechanic for this one. It is one where I do think, like, there is some potential for it. I think there's some room that they can do with it. You know, I think there's some room that they can make adjustments to it, or, like, the kinds of cards that they end up putting it on. I do think it's kind of cool. It's a kind of cool concept where, again, it's a different way to get value out of it. Moving on. Overlord of the Haunt Woods is going to be demonstrating the Impending mechanic. This is $18. My goodness. 6/5 Avatar for 5 mana in green. Enchantment creature. Whenever it enters or attacks, create a tap colorless token named everywhere that is a basic land, as every basic land type. Impending 4. Here's the mechanic itself. Pay 1 green. If you cast a spell for its impending cost, it enters with 4 time counters and isn't a creature until the last one is removed. Game of your end step, remove a time counter from it. So this one is one that, like, it gives you value right away, potentially. Again, when it enters, essentially, you get that tapped colorless land token named everywhere. Cool. But also, when it attacks, you get that value as well. But yeah, you are getting that value when you are initially doing that impending. It is coming into play, essentially. It's not a creature, but it can be removed beforehand because it's still an enchantment, essentially. So it is interesting. It's kind of like Suspend in a way, but like a permanent version of Suspend. It's like, okay, it exists. You can interact with it, opponents. But yeah, if you don't deal with it, it's going to be turning into a creature at some point. And I still get value out of it right away. I mean, I do think that this one does have some potential. I think that this one is one that I would say is a solid mechanic. Again, it's an interesting take on Suspend, and I do like that it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, it's not fully there, but it is there, and you still get some value right away. So even if it's, say, it gets removed or whatnot, because there is that risk to it, like, you do still get some value from it right away. So it's pretty cool. Okay, next up, Rooms! Here we go. Unholy Annex. Yeah, this one is a very good card. It's a very, very good card. It's like Phyrexian Arena, but potentially even better. It just depends on the circumstance, but like, its potential is there. Okay. Enchantment Room for 3 mana in black. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life. If you gain 2 life, otherwise lose 2 life. Ritual Chamber, the other half of the room. We'll talk about room does here in a bit. For 5 mana in black, whenever you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature with flying. Enchantment Room. Let's read that part real quick. You may cast either half. The door unlocks on the battlefield as a sorcery. You may pay the mana cost of a locked room or locked door to unlock it. It's a very interesting concept. It really is. It's like, okay, 2 cards in 1. So again, we've seen those before. We've seen like fuse cards, split cards. We've seen those things before, but now it's like a permanent version of that. And like you unlock one at a time. Again, you cast one, you unlock the other. Like the weird thing is like if you like, I mean, if one's in your graveyard, if it's in your graveyard and you like, okay, get it back out and play from your graveyard, it's like, oh, neither door is unlocked. Just kind of funny. So there's some like nuance to it. It is pretty interesting, and you can pick which either half you want to kind of start with. And then you can unlock the other half when you need to, though, and get extra value out of it. So I do like this concept a lot. I think that like the fact that it's called Rooms is like probably going to be holding it back from like being in more like sets moving forward. I mean, I like the concept. Like I really want to see more of these. I think it's a really cool concept. I think that like the play like in the game can be really cool because it's like you're saving extra value for later potentially, or yeah, you're changing things up with like a room being unlocked. And there's some different interactions that you can like work with it. I think it's a really cool concept. Again, I do think that it's like, what sets moving forward is this going to be in? Like, because like, I mean, I guess, like, technically, like, places have rooms. Like, you know, like, okay, we're in Ravnica, and we're in this, like, castle thing or whatnot, and, like, oh, there's a door. But, like, are people going to be, like, really all about doors? Like, it was a specific, like, Duskborn, like, story thing where, like, the rooms, like, really meant, like, different, like, magical things. Like, is it really going to, like, it's going to be hard, I think, for Wizards to keep bringing this one back, but I think that I'd really like it to be brought back as well. So, yeah, interesting. Okay, moving on to Fallout, we've got Nuclear Fallout, which demonstrates the rad mechanic, rad mechanic, kind of like rad counters. Here we go. Storage for X, black. Each creature gets twice, -X, -X till turn. Each player gets X rad counters. When it comes to the rad counters, let's just show it off real quick. Radiation. Beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you have any rad counters, mill that many cards. For each non-main card, mill this way, you lose 1 life, and a rad counter. So basically with this, you are essentially, like getting a bunch of radiation. And with that, you are, milling, which is like losing some things as well, but also losing life too. Like the radiation can actually help you, obviously, if you actually want to mill, or if you're milling your opponents, obviously. Like if you're in a mill deck, great, you mill your opponents, cool. But like for yourself, like if you have a self-mill deck, there is potential for it. Like, it is one that I think is pretty particular in what it does. Like, because it is kind of like a win condition in 2 ways, potentially, kind of. But also, like, a help you, but a hindrance to you as well, in a way. It is interesting. It's a very interesting mechanic. It's an interesting take on a mechanic. I think I'll put this one in, like... And again, like, I don't know how they would actually... I don't think that they could... It's like between, again, just okay and solid mechanic. Because it's like a new concept for a mechanic. But, like, how are they going to bring it back? I'm going to put it in a solid mechanic, I think, because I do think it's an interesting, different take on mill that kind of gives you a different direction. But I do think that, like, it's one that's going to be, like, not impossible for them to bring back, but, like, what Magic said is going to have radiation. So there you go. Next up, Dog Meat Ever Loyal is going to be demonstrating the Junk mechanic, or Junk token, I should say. 3/3 legend creature dog for 3 mana in Naya enters the battlefield, mill 5 card turn, or equipment card from your grave to your hand. Whenever a creature you control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, create a Junk token, which I will show off right here. A Junk token is an artifact, Junk. Tap, sacrifice artifact, exile top card of your library, and play a card this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. This one is one that I do think that they should be bringing back. I do like the concept a lot. Like, again, like this is kind of like Clue adjacent in a way, but like with Impulse Draw, it is one where I'm saying more please. Yes, I do think that there's a lot of potential for it. Again, allowing you to utilize, again, like card advantage in a unique way where it's kind of a risk, a little bit of a risk compared to like a Clue token. Like Clue token, like, yeah, you've got to invest mana into it, right? You pay 2 mana, you sacrifice it, you draw a card. You get to keep that card. With a Junk token, you can be like, okay, I'll tap, sacrifice. Oh no, it's like one of my best cards, but it's like 7 mana, and I don't have 7 mana to utilize it. And again, it's only play it this turn. So again, like it's not giving you value, on your opponent's turns most likely, unless you have a bunch of instant sorceries, or sorry, instants, I should say. And then also, like, there is that limitation where, yeah, you might just get one of your best cards, but it might cost too much and you can't actually play it. So I like the push and pull with this one. I do think that Junk is something that could come back. Like, I think Junk has a bit more of potential chance to come back flavor-wise versus, say, Radiation, like in other sets. Like, you could have, like, some mechanics in certain sets. Like, different sets could have, like, mechanics or, like, different kind of artists or something that could work with like Junk. Okay, there you go. All right, next up, Murders at Karlov Manor is going to show off with an Analyze the Pollen. We're going to get to Evidence. Source for a single green mana. As additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect Evidence 8, which means exile cards with total mana value 8 or greater from your graveyard. Search life for a basic land card. If Evidence was collected, instead search life for a creature or land card. Reveal that card, put in your hand, then shuffle. Again, it's another version of Kicker, essentially. But in my opinion, still, like, a unique-ish version of Kicker. Obviously, again, it's like, okay, copy, paste, adjust. This is a cool adjustment, though, where, yeah, all right, I'm utilizing cards out of my graveyard. It's not a certain number of cards, so it's kind of like Forage-ish, but it is, again, like, mana value-based. So, like, you could get rid of one giant card. You could get rid of, a couple of small, or a good amount of small cards, essentially. So I do like that, again, like, you get value no matter what, but the value that you can get can be a lot greater the longer the game goes, most likely, the more things you have in your graveyard. There is that graveyard play with it. This one, I do like that it is more so... I do like, personally, I'm just leaning toward, like, I like the mana value, because that gives, like, a bit more intrigue with it, where it's like, okay, like, I can choose to get rid of this one big thing, or 3 or 4 small things, versus, like, Forge, it's like, okay, always 3 things, or a food token. So it's just, like, that one felt like... Flavor-wise, with the food token makes sense, but also it's like you're playing food, yeah, you have a much better chance of utilizing it versus, say, like, yeah, I think this one's more like broad appeal. So I do think that, I'm getting a lot of these more please. Like, I don't know. I don't know, like, year from year, because it's the first time me doing this. Like, I don't know, like, how many would have been from last year, but, like, I do like a good amount of mechanics from this year. I thought, like, a lot of them really well done. There's not too many out there that I'm like, oh, gosh, what were you doing? But yeah, I do think that there are certain ones out there where, yeah, I think bringing them back would be great. Okay, moving on. Case the Ransack Lab. This is going to show off the case new mechanic, essentially. Enchantment case, or like new kind of card type, essentially, in a way. For 3 mana in blue, in sorcery spells you cast cost 1 to cast to solve. You've cast 4 more in sorcery spells this turn. Unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. Solve whenever you cast it. It's a short spell, draw a card. So basically, this is kind of like, it's kind of like, oh gosh, what's the one? Like, not the backgrounds one. Oh man, classes. It's like class. I mean, which is kind of like a variation. Yeah, it's all variations of like enchantments that kind of build on themselves, right? Like they're basically kind of like the same thing but different. Whereas this one is like, okay, instead of paying mana into it like the class enchantments that you have to do, this one's more so, okay, you need to meet a specific requirement. The requirements are different, and I do like that you can have different kinds of requirements, and basically the harder the requirement to get to, like the bigger the payoff most of the time with these, but you still get a decent amount of value out of that first one as well. Like, I mean, there's certain decks out there just like, oh, okay, I would just still utilize this card anyways, just to reduce the cost of spins and sorceries. That being said, yeah, the really big payoff is massive for you. See, it's all kind of like based off like sagas that came into, you know, cases, or sorry, came into classes, which came to cases. So like, yeah, just like moving from one to the other, to the other, to the other, like it's all building on each other. So I do think it's an interesting concept. I think that there is a bit of like wonkiness to it in a way. Like again, if unsolved, solved begin makes sense. Like there's a little bit of wonkiness to it, but like I think it's an interesting, solid mechanic that I think has enough intrigue in it to bring it back. Okay, moving on. Argus cost Spirit of Justice is going to be showing off the suspected mechanic. 2/4 Spirit Detective, Double Strike, and Vigilance for 4 mana in Boros. Whenever it enters or attacks, choose up to one target creature. If it's suspected, exile it. Otherwise, suspected. Suspected creature has menace and can't block. So basically, it's just saying like, okay, you have menace, you can't block. You are all about attacking now. This is like, in my opinion, like kind of a take on Goad-ish. Like it's not forcing you to swing at that creature, but it's like making the creature like pretty useless to be able to, it can't block. So like you're just gonna have it sit there. So like, that is like abilities to just sit around like, yeah, attacking and giving it menace, a way to like get it through. It's one that just like really doesn't speak to me for whatever reason though. Like it's just one that like, I could go without seeing this one again. Like, and it's one that when I first saw, I was like, why'd they make this? Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, I suspect you. So then like you go crazy. Like what if it's an innocent person or whatnot? Like, I suspect you. Oh my gosh. I'm going to go crazy and just start swinging and not be able to block ever again. Like, I don't know. Like it's one that like the flavor doesn't work for me. And like the function's like, it's very specific and like not all that. Okay. Moving on. Hide in plain sight. We're going to be showing off the Cloak mechanic. Source for 4 mana in green. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Cloak 2 of them and put the rest of your library in a random order. To cloak a card, put on the battlefield face down as a creature, a 2/2 creature with ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its mana cost, say creature card. Again, base like manifest essentially, but literally with just like adding ward 2. Yeah, this one like less so than like, at least Manifest Dread like gave you like the what do you call it, like the actual like card selection, getting things into your graveyard potentially, kind of like a surveil-ish. This one's like, no, it's just basically Manifest, but we also added ward 2. So it's like not really an adjustment at all. So I really don't know. I just thought that one didn't speak to me at all. Like Manifest I thought was cool, and you're like, here's Manifest again, but we had to change the name for some reason. And also, yeah, sure, ward 2. Cool, all right. No, not for me. All right, Murders at Karlov Manor. Continuing, a 4/4 Elf Lizard Warrior, because that's a thing. Experiment 12 for 4 mana in green. Trample. Whenever it or another creature you control is turn face up, put +1 counters on it equal to its power. There we go. Disguise for 5 mana in total. You may cast a card for its face down cost, a 3/3, or a 2, sorry, for 3 mana. As a 2/2 creature with ward 2, turn face up again for its disguise cost. Again, this is literally just like, the disguise cost is, this is just morph. This is literally just, again, morph, but we added ward 2 onto it, so it made it different. Like, that's, again, like, that's like a never again to me. Like, where, like, you didn't, like, change the mechanic enough, really. You didn't give, like, any extra intrigue into it. All you do is just, you know, stamp ward 2 onto morph and be like, this is different. And it's like, no, it's not. Okay, moving on. Great Train Heist is going to be showing off from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. The Spree mechanic. Instant for a single red mana, but not really, because you need to choose 1 or more additional cost. Plus 2 in a red. Untap all creatures you control if your combat phase is combat phase of the phase, basically extra combat. Plus 2 extra mana. Creature you control +1/+0 gain first strike until turn. Plus 1 extra red mana. Choose target opponent. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to that player this turn, create tap treasure token. So this is again kind of like multi-kicker in a way, ish, kind of. I really like this one though. It like gives a lot of flexibility to cards. And it's just a really cool mechanic in my opinion, because again, you can like pick and choose what you want out of the card. just by paying extra mana to do so. Again, it's like, yes, a variation of like kicker and multi-kicker and whatnot, but I do think it's a pretty cool concept, and I would like to see it back. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It's a really cool, it's like kind of like the pinnacle of modal spells, in my opinion, where it's like, yeah, you get like all the options. You got to pay for them, though. It's like kind of like a buffet. I guess no, buffets you don't have to pay for after you paid for it already. But yeah, it's like a la carte. There we go. That's the term. See, it's a la carte, but with kicker. I think it's a pretty cool concept. Moving on, Bandit's Hall. Artifact for 3 mana. This one's going to demonstrate the crime mechanic. Whenever you commit a crime, put a loot counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Target opponents, anything they control and or cards in their graveyards is a crime. Tap, add 1 of any color. Pay 2, tap, remove 2 loot counters from it. Draw a card. Okay, again, this is where, again, like, I might just be a bit off compared to some other players when it comes to, like, the thoughts on this mechanic. It's hard for me to get past that literally every single card that was about committing a crime, except for, I think, Marchesa. Let me know in the comments below. I might be wrong on that. Maybe that's Skeleton, too. There's, like, 2 things. The vast majority of the cards with this were, like, once each turn. And that just irks me. Whenever it's just like, okay, the mechanic is inherently completely limited just because, yeah, like, sure, like, in certain circumstances, I could find ways to use and abuse abilities that, do that. I understand, but also, like, come on. As a Johnny, like, I don't like those limitations all that much. And again, like, that's not technically part of the, mechanic itself, because it just says, whenever you commit crime, you do this. Like, and then the committing the crime is not about once each turn. It is targeting opponents, anything they control, cards in their graveyards, that's a crime. And that's, like, a decent concept, but, like, you have to attach the once each turn on it, probably, but like, I don't like when you, like, make mechanics in that way where it's like, oh, we made something that's completely broken. Well, we're just gonna solve it with one of our 2 ways of solving it, which is activate only sorcery speed or triggers only once each turn, which are some of my least favorite words in Magic, essentially. And yeah, I think it's just okay because, like, it is a mechanic that's, like, interesting. Like, target opponents things, don't do that. But yeah, it is one where, again, like, its limitation just kind of annoys me, so I'm putting it there. All right, next up, Ornery Tumblewag, a 2/2 Brushwag mount for 3 mana in green. We have combat on your turn, put a counter on target creature. When it attacks while saddled, double the number of counters on target creature saddle 2, which means tap any number of other creatures you control total power 2 or more. This mount becomes saddled until end turn. Saddle is a sorcery. It's basically crew cost for creatures, essentially. It's like, this is already a creature, it's not a vehicle, but you can crew it by saddling it, essentially. So, yeah, I like crew. I like saddle because, yeah, it is one where, yeah, I mean, you get extra benefits for doing so. It's like, this doesn't become a creature, but you actually get additional benefits. Again, you get to double the number of counters on target creature for this. Different benefits, again, when you do, crew the creature, basically, essentially. So it is interesting. It's one that I'm not like, yeah, bring it back every set, but it is one that's like, yeah, I could see it as a solid mechanic that could come back again. So there you go. All right, the last one, if I don't scroll down too far. Lock and Load, showing off Plot. Sorcery for 3 mana in total. Draw a card, then draw a card for each other instant sorcery spell you've cast this turn. Plot for 3 in a blue. You may pay 3 in a blue and exile this card from your hand. Cast the sorcery on a later turn by paying its mana cost. Plot is no sorcery. I mean, this is basically like Foretell, but with an adjustment where Foretell is like, okay, it's going to give you like a reduced cost, essentially. This is like, no, you're overpaying for it, but you get to cast it for free later. And I'm a pretty big fan of that, actually. I do think that it's a really cool, I like the interplay of that. I like, especially with a format like Commander, where it's like, you can just kind of like lay these things out and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. Like, you've activated my trap card, but not really because it's not instant speed. But being able to just be like, okay, I'm saving this for later, it changes the aspect of just how you manage your mana. And it changes the aspect of, again, like the potential of a card like this. Again, like, okay, cool. Like, on a turn that you would just cast this by hard casting, it's like, all right, I'm going to draw like 3 cards maybe because I cast some other instant sorceries. But like essentially if you are able to pay an extra mana for this, you say, okay, I'm going to save this away. On a bigger turn, I'm then going to play lots of instant sorceries and then cast this for free. A lot of extra value is going to be had from that. So I do think that, again, like Plot gives you a lot of different cool ways to play with it. I do think, again, it helps with like mana management and like allows you resource management, I should say, more so. But yeah, it's a very cool concept. I do like it. It's a different like play on Foretell, but I really like it. It gives you that flexibility. It's a very cool concept. Okay. Overall, I feel pretty good, I think, about where I ended up with these mechanics. Let me know what your thoughts are on these in the comments below. Again, you might disagree with me entirely, and that's completely fine. I do think overall, I mean, if we just look at this chart, I think this year was a solid year for mechanics. Like over half the mechanics, in my opinion, were in that solid or yeah, bring it back right now. Kind of, not bring it back right now, but like, yeah, bring it back. Please, please, please bring it back. Tiers versus like, just okay. Or like, don't you dare do that again. Like, why would you do that? Okay. So yeah, let me know your thoughts are on the comments below. Again, I think it was a very solid year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what we get next year with our mechanics as well. And hopefully I remember doing one of these lists then as well if you enjoyed this. And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on this episode. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.